Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer Sonderfolge von Handelsblatt Disrupt. In diesem Podcast sprechen wir mit Führungskräften über neue Technologien, Innovationen und die großen Herausforderungen der Transformation. Wir, das bin seit kurzem vor allem ich, Larissa Holzki, Technologiereporterin beim Handelsblatt und hier redaktionell verantwortlich für unsere Flagship-Konferenz Tech und andere spannende Formate rund um Digitalisierung und Fortschritt. Heute empfehle ich Ihnen an dieser Stelle aber ein Gespräch unseres Chefredakteurs Sebastian Matthes. Er hat beim Weltwirtschaftsforum in Davos nämlich einen der wichtigsten Köpfe hinter dem ChatGPT-Entwickler OpenAI getroffen, den Chief Operating Officer Brad Lightcap. Lightcap ist bei OpenAI für das operative Geschäft zuständig. Er verantwortet strategische Partnerschaften und soll dafür sorgen, dass die KI-Firma erfolgreich in immer mehr Märkte vordringt. Sebastian hat ihn zu einer spannenden und auch kritischen Zeit getroffen. Erstens haben die jüngsten KI-Modelle von OpenAI nicht so überzeugt, wie wir es vom gehyptesten Startup der Welt gewohnt sind. Zweitens halten Kritiker die Bewertung der Firma von 500 Milliarden Dollar für viel zu hoch. Und drittens zeichnet sich ab, dass OpenAI vielleicht schon in diesem Jahr an die Börse streben könnte. Im Interview versucht Lightcap, Zweifel an OpenAI auszuräumen. Und er geht auf Sebastians Frage ein, warum viele Unternehmen noch immer keine Effizienzgewinne durch KI sehen. Er begründet, warum OpenAI trotz aller Warnungen vor einer KI-Blase weiter Milliarden in Rechenzentren und Chips investiert. Und er spricht auch darüber, warum ausgerechnet Deutschland für OpenAI ein sehr wichtiger Markt ist. Besonders spannend aus meiner Sicht, im Gespräch geht es auch um das erste Hardware-Produkt von OpenAI, das 2026 kommen soll und das manche schon als eine Art Nachfolger des Smartphones handeln. Am besten, Sie hören jetzt selbst rein in diese Sonderfolge aus Davos. Das Gespräch hat Sebastian am 21. Januar aufgenommen.
Brad, welcome. Great to have you here at the World Economic Forum. We are standing outside. Perfect view. Have you been to Davos before?
I have. This is my second year.
Right.
I was here in 2024.
So what do you think?
Well, you know, it's such an amazing opportunity to meet, for us at least, so many partners, customers. Not my area of expertise, but also engaging with countries and regulators, and it's just for us. I think OpenAI and AI generally is become such a global phenomenon, an area of interest. And so It's fun for us to engage.
So AI is definitely one of the biggest topics here in Davos, and I'm sure you've had countless conversations already. What's the biggest misunderstanding you keep hearing about AI in your conversations?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is people tend to, we're so used to technologies being one and done phenomenons, meaning there's something that gets invented, and once it's invented, it barely changes. And the thing that we get on day one is the thing that we have to live with and incorporate into our lives. Right. AI is so unique because it's constantly changing and it's constantly progressing, and we're really just at the beginning of, I think, what will be the world's journey to develop and build these types of systems. And so for us, and being so close to our research, it always feels very close to being in motion. And one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing is trying to translate that rate of progress to people here who have to think about how it applies to individual people, to businesses, to governments, to education, health, things like that.
Mm-hmm. So OpenAI has announced a device, and you've talked about this in Davos. It might come out later this year. What does the device look like?
Well, I can't say much about it, but one of the interesting things is every time you get a platform shift in technology, you tend to see entirely new ways of engaging with computing systems. And so when you had the microprocessor invented, for example, that led to the personal computing revolution. Obviously, mobile phones and applications on mobile phones completely changed the way people engage with technology day to day. We think AI is going to be no different. And so it's an entirely new interaction paradigm for the relationship that people have with computers. And we think that there's an interesting set of devices to be built that can accentuate and accelerate the impact that the technology can have for people.
Will we still use smartphones by then?
I suspect we will. We'll have some form of a smartphone-like device, because the compression of information on a smartphone is so critical, and I think is still essential to be able to navigate the complex parts of work. But
so you'll believe there will be still apps around.
It's hard to say. It may be that the way that we use smartphones and the way that we use computers changes. So I'll give you an example. My wife and I actually just had a baby. We have
congratulations!
Thank you. And we have many friends who have small children and growing families. And one of the things that we've seen is ChatGPT has actually become an entirely new way for kids to think about using computers. So for them, it's much more natural to talk to a computing system, right? They see a smartphone or a tablet, and they start talking to it, right? Because the expectation is that it'll talk back to them because they're used to talking to something like ChatGPT in our voice mode. And it's the same thing that you saw when smartphones and tablets were originally invented, when it became natural and expected to be able to touch a computer and point at the thing you want. Which was a progression from the keyboard and mouse-based systems that dominated most of the 1990s and the early 2000s. And so this is just the progression of technology. As our interaction models change, devices get built that I think are built to accompany and accelerate what the technology is capable of.
Can I just ask one question? Because all what you just said would also be possible to do with an app on a smartphone. So why do you need a new device? And I would have to carry another device with me in future then.
Well, I think that AI as a technology is one of the cool things about it is it's capable of taking in a lot of context. So you think about, today we actually are minimally using the context windows of AI systems.
So the surrounding, the people I meet.
Exactly. All the things that really kind of comprise, everything about your life, your work. You think about the amount of data you come into contact with every day is many multiples the amount that ever is really understood or captured by an AI model. But one of the things that we've seen consistently is that the more context AI systems have, the better they perform at any given task. And so part of the design challenge we have is how do we think about to make AI systems truly useful, to build a truly useful super assistant? How do you help expand that context window, not in terms of what the AI system can take, but how much it actually is able to capture?
Will this actually be this one super assistant? Will we only have one LLM for everything or different AIs for different use cases?
So I think that everyone will feel like they'll have one super assistant that really knows them. I think how that system engages on any given set of tasks is still to be figured out. You could imagine worlds where you have LM systems that are delegating to other models. You've got multi-agent systems and protocols that are established between agent systems, for example, that can let them transact and exchange and engage. In many ways, I think you'll have kind of an entire AI universe that in some ways mimics a lot of the structures we've built for people to interact. And you've seen glimpses of this already. We introduced something called our Agentic Commerce Protocol, lets agent systems execute commercial transactions. You've seen now a lot of research.
When is that coming to Europe?
It's a good question. We can get back to you on that. But it's the future is the direction of travel, I think, is AI systems that really start to integrate into the world, which, as you know, the world is complex. It's very systems based, and it's engaging between people and between systems is critical.
Nach einer kurzen Unterbrechung geht es gleich weiter. Bleiben Sie dran.
Finanzen, Tech und Festival passen nicht zusammen? Doch, und wie? Das zeigt die FIBE jedes Jahr aufs Neue. 2026 geht das Finanz- und Tech-Festival in Berlin in die nächste Runde. Mit frischen Ideen, spannenden Köpfen und jeder Menge Austausch. Sicher dir jetzt mit dem Code FIBE-PodcastHB ganze 450 € Rabatt auf dein Regular-Ticket. Weitere Infos unter fibe-berlin.com.
Another topic I keep hearing here in Davos, AI has gone from hype to infrastructure, and in some places also disappointment. A lot of executives tell me, the pilots and demos are amazing, but productivity gains are not as good as we expected. So what's the bottleneck right now? Is it models? Is it data, workflows, or the leadership inside companies?
Yeah, so we actually think that right now we're in what we call a capability overhang. And what we mean by that is that the models are actually way more capable of doing productive work than the environments in which they're put in. And So really, we actually see this partly as a systems problem and partly as a context problem.
So what are the mistakes being made within companies?
Well, enterprises are complicated organizations. And so I think a big part of the trend line here is going to be how do enterprises set up their organizations and their systems to be able to ingest and inherit AI systems that are performing fundamentally new work. I think that's going to be really the next wave. And I think what we're excited about into 2026 in the enterprise is you're going to start to see the beginnings now of systems that look like more like teammates, where they can make use of enterprise data in more interesting ways. They can make use of tools to solve problems. Reasoning models being at the core of that. Obviously, reasoning models are an entirely new paradigm of AI model. These are systems that can think for a long amount of time. They have the ability to experiment, to come up with ideas, try stuff, learn from feedback. And so this is an entirely new way, really, that software is even built to work. But that means that organizations and enterprises are going to have to learn to adapt both their organization and their IT stacks and their systems to be able to get use of these types of AI models.
Can you give an example of a company that has found amazing use cases that you could talk about here?
Well, there are many, and one of the things that we see that's interesting is a gap today that exists between the companies we consider to be highly advanced in their adoption of AI versus the ones that haven't been. One that I love as an example is we work very closely with T-Mobile in the United States. The way that they have thought, for example, about customer interaction. And they're a very customer-centric company. They really do think about the user experience at every step of the company and every step of the journey. And one of the things that we worked really closely with them on is how do we actually improve the way that customers engage with T-Mobile in a support capacity, in a contact center capacity. And so we've really rethought that from first principles, meaning how do you actually bring language models into that workflow, make that experience much more seamless, bring more information to the customer, leveraging the data that T-Mobile has in their systems. Eventually, we can start to transition that into other modalities, things like voice. And so we're really just at the beginning of that. And you can imagine that applying anywhere. It can be in life sciences, it can be in retail, it can be in industrials, financial services. There's really no limit, and that's one of the cool things about this.
And you have massive amount of data, how people worldwide are using AI. Do you see any difference between Europe and United States and Asia?
Well, I think, we've seen as much enthusiasm in Europe as we've seen anywhere in the world. In Germany in particular, some of the numbers are really staggering. I think Germany is top 3 among users both of many of our products in the world.
When it comes to number of users?
Number of users, number of developers, and number of businesses. I think Germany comes in top 3 on all. And we've seen just tremendous growth in Europe and a lot of demand from European users and enterprises alike wanting to bring AI into their lives.
What do people use ChatGPT for the most? What is the top 3?
Well, it's very individual. So every person's got a little bit of their own pattern of use. One of the things we're particularly excited about, though, is health. So we recently released ChatGPT Health.
We're going to talk about it, definitely.
Yeah, and health is one of the areas that we saw as something that was really from the beginning of ChatGPT a consistent area of interest from users, wanting to take more control of their healthcare, and that can mean understanding things like chronic conditions that they're managing, can mean understanding the healthcare environment that they live in. So whether that's things like insurance and benefits, providing care for others. There are many people who are caretakers for other people.
So is health one of the top 3 things people use ChatGPT for?
It's definitely up there. Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Well, there's a bunch of other things we see. Learning is a critical use case. That was really one of the original use cases, I think, for ChatGPT. We saw adoption among students very early on, and we've worked really closely with educational institutions. Education is now one of our largest segments, actually, and we've worked really closely with both in the United States and elsewhere in the world, organizations that are focused on how AI adoption in schools and in learning can really impact outcomes.
Talk a little bit about how the health-focused ChatGPT will look like in future. Will you help users directly? Will you help health organizations?
Yeah. So right now we're really focused on individual use within ChatGPT.
My personal doctor.
Exactly. So
health coach.
You'd be able to link your medical records. We have models that are specialized for giving information about health. We outlink to resources that are related to health, whether those are medical or otherwise. The models are really good at doing things like ingesting lab results and helping you interpret and understand lab results. So we're just starting to scratch the surface of what this experience looks like. Obviously, critical that we do this in a privacy-preserving way. So that's been a big focus of how we've architected the health feature in ChatGPT. And there's a lot more to come on this.
And when will this start in Europe?
So I think we're just in our alpha now. I think anyone that signs up can get on a wait list, and our hope is to start letting people in fairly soon.
Okay, I tried, but it wasn't possible last weekend, so maybe it's
we can
I can try again.
Try and help you out.
Very interesting point is, where do you draw the line between helpful information and actual medical advice?
Well, I think, one of the ways that we really see language models evolving is that the language models themselves are not necessarily the sources of information, especially as you enter this new age of reasoning models that are inherently more agentic. One of the things that they're able to do is use tools to help you solve problems. And so the same way that a person would go look up sources of information from databases or from, sources of truth, systems of record, qualified sources, AI models are capable now of doing the same exact thing. And so one of the things we really want to do, and is emphasized in our health work and elsewhere, is being able to help direct people toward the places that are, those systems of record and sources of truth, and making sure people have access to resources.
Okay, but it's not medical advice, it's only...
It's not medical advice,
right, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, will this become a business model at some point?
Well, I think the way we look at it is, it comes back to our mission, right? We really see broad benefit and access as critical to the work we do. And so our view is, if we build products that people want to use and AI systems that are useful to people, we'll figure out the business model later. But the core of it is really just A, understanding how people are using AI, and then B is making sure that it's meeting people where they're at. And that's going to be different for everyone.
In another field, you have changed your business model, let's say so. I find that quite interesting, because Sam Altman said in October 2024, I kind of think of ads as a last resort for us as a business model. Now you implemented ads in your business model. So what changed since then?
Well, it's a few things. I would say one is, we're really early in ads as a format and a business at all. And so part of it is just going to be experimentation for a long time to make sure we get it right. That means respecting user privacy. It means making sure that we're really clear in upholding the principles that we communicate around ads, which we published. So I expect we'll be in that stage here for a while. But I think it comes back to access. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that anyone in the world, anywhere with an internet connection, can have access to a really high quality and powerful AI system. If you look at the direction of travel for AI systems, they are becoming much more compute intensive. In part, that's because of what I mentioned is this new reasoning paradigm, where you have models that now can go off and think, solve hard problems, use tools. And we're starting to see that appear in consumer use very consistently. So, there's still a gap there. We still see a fairly wide gap, and that's what we call this capability overhang of the power users using AI 7 times more.
But subscribers don't see ads.
Then the average subscribers don't see ads.
And won't see ads.
Neither will businesses.
Forever?
That's,
okay.
Yeah, correct. So, you can choose to opt out of those if you want. But I think what we heard from users consistently is, if I can get access to more powerful systems that are capable of doing more for me, that's the priority.
Will ads become a core part of ChatGPT?
Again, we're still experimenting with how this will work.
How do you find out if people find ChatGPT less useful when they see ads? How can you monitor that?
Well, we obviously can see it in data. We talk to users, but I think that the important thing here is that we really want to make sure that we're thoughtful about the implementation of this. And I think, ultimately the way we can do this is that they're helpful to people, right? A lot of people use ChatGPT in search of things. It was one of the inspirations for why we launched commerce in ChatGPT and shopping. Is because people use ChatGPT as an assistant to help them find things that they need in their life. And so in some sense, this is actually a way for us to possibly add to the experience if we do it thoughtfully.
Right, okay. Not so many look for ads, I guess, but let's see. Do you think we are in an AI bubble already?
No, I mean, I think, if you look consistently at how we've been able to invest in compute, we've never been on the right side of the demand curve there. We've always felt that we could use many multiples more compute than we have. And then two is the kind of geometric increase in the rate of growth of users, and then also the rate of consumption for each individual user.
Sure, but also you need an ARR to finance all of that, right?
Yes, and we've seen consistent ARR growth too. So what we've seen pattern-wise is every dollar that we've been able to invest in compute has generally produced about $3 of revenue for us. So we think that's a pretty good return. We expect that could increase over time. And again, we're going to invest aggressively ahead of what we see as the trend line.
So no bubble?
I don't right now see any reason to think that. But
so what would be a clear sign that the bubble narrative is right?
A key sign that the bubble narrative is right. Well, I think, look, there's going to be aggressive investment, and I think in some sense that's a feature, not a bug. What it means is investors recognize the opportunity, and capital floods into the space. Not every company is going to work out, and so I think we just, we have to be prepared for the fact that this is a dynamic environment, and there's a lot of people trying a lot of things. Some of those things are highly capital intensive, and so they're attracting investment. But I think we can focus on what we can focus on, and that's building great models and great products for users.
Let's go to the big promise. OpenAI started as a research lab with the goal of AGI, and Sam Altman has said in the past that AGI could be closer than many expect. However, critics, and that is a discussion here in Davos as well, argue the opposite, that progress is slowing, jumps are getting smaller, scaling is delivering less. Who's right?
Well, we see the trend line as more exponential than not. I would say we still feel that the rate of model progress is extraordinarily high. We still see leaps in capabilities that we measure as consistent with the trend line that we would expect in a world where we had accelerating capabilities.
Can you give me one concrete capability that felt impossible, let's say, a year ago and is now reliably working?
Of course. So software engineering is a really interesting category for this. That entire field, in my opinion, is about to change. If you spend time in San Francisco and kind of the epicenter of technology, the way that individual software engineers are using AI is fundamentally different than anywhere else in the world. AI systems like Codex, for example, where you can now delegate fairly complex software engineering tasks to an agent that will go off and spend as much as a few hours thinking about how to solve that task, writing code, trying that code, writing unit tests, debugging, doing everything that a software engineer would normally go through and do, and can now do it fully autonomously only by enabling access to a code base. That's a transformative change in how software engineering works as a practice. And the engineers that I work with who are, especially at OpenAI, who work with these systems every day, are now just fundamentally thinking differently about where they spend their time and the entire discipline of software engineering.
But this has changed for quite some time now. Is that really a difference to 1 year ago?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Even a year ago, it wasn't conceivable that you could have an AI system that could think and reason about a complex software engineering task for 5-6 hours, something like that. And I expect we'll be back here in a year and talking about AI systems that are reasoning for days.
So, what is your definition of AGI as a benchmark?
Yeah, so we think about it as systems that can do most economically valuable work. I think maybe one way to think about that is an AI system that can effectively use a computer to do anything that a human could do at a high level of proficiency. I think we still have a ways to go to get there. I think there's still some pieces that are missing, but I think we're making really good progress in that direction.
And how long will it take that we see that moment?
Very hard to say. I've sworn off making predictions, but this field, I've been doing this now for a while. I've been at OpenAI almost 8 years. And one of the things that's been consistent is progress is surprising. I think things that feel like they should be 2, 3, 4 years off, it's not uncommon that they're more like 6, 12, 18 months off. And so we don't see any reason why that will be different as we look out on the horizon. But again, it's very hard to predict.
How will the world change the day after AGI came to our everyday life?
I think people will wake up. I think it will feel very much the same. One of the interesting things that we see is despite there's a great saying that I invoke now more and more frequently, which is the future's here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. And I don't know if that was Arthur Clarke or who said that, but it really is apropos for AI and how we see the trend line here, and is why we've been here at Davos talking a lot about this capability overhang, where you now have a very small group of people whose lives have been fundamentally upended by these types of systems. Their workflows have changed. They manage their life differently. They set and track goals differently. And then you have a lot of people who are still, 99% of people who are still using 1% of the capability of the AI. But over time, I think you're going to see that gap start to close.
So nothing will change overnight.
I don't know that anything will change overnight.
Okay.
I think there's an ingestion process that the world has to go through to absorb the technology.
What is the one thing you are most looking forward to? The day after AGI happened, what is changing?
Well, if it can solve email, that would be nice. Or Slack, that would be great. But I would say...
I don't believe this will ever happen.
I would say that the biggest thing is anyone with really high agency, I think, is going to be in a great position. I think if you have ideas, if you're creative, if there are things that you want to see exist in the world, whether that's your personal life or in your community, you now really have no reason why you can't go solve that problem. If you want to start a business, if you want to accelerate health outcomes, there's so much opportunity. And in some sense, part of the challenge we have at OpenAI is translating the work that we do into that opportunity, the realization of that opportunity. And so it's why we lean in heavily to the community. That can be both from a political perspective, and the work we do with countries can be all the way down to the level of individuals, students, creatives. All of these are really, really important parts of the ecosystem, and we can't do it alone. So,
right.
Yeah.
Brad, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Und das war's schon wieder mit Handelsblatt Disrupt. Die nächste reguläre Folge hören Sie wie immer am Freitag. Bis dahin eine gute Zeit. Ihre Larissa Holzki.
Kennen Sie schon unseren Handelsblatt Moneymaker? Damit bekommen Sie die wichtigsten Finanzinfos direkt auf Ihr Smartphone. Schnell, kompakt und zuverlässig. 2-mal pro Woche schicken wir Ihnen aktuelle Marktnachrichten, präzise Analysen, praktische Sparchecks und Strategien für Ihre nächste Gehaltsverhandlung. Alles gebündelt in einem WhatsApp-Chat. Einfach auf handelsblatt.com/WhatsApp gehen, den Chat starten und sofort loslegen. Handelsblatt Moneymaker. Ihr kompaktes Finanzwissen für unterwegs.